children state about similar accounts that happened in their past life, and after those accounts were recalled, remembered, and then she explained, and when the patient identified the cause himself or herself, then it was easy to do the treatment. So that's another strange thing. So the obvious question that you should ask, that why Stevenson found only 20 cases, or why only few research by other doctors? So why does not everybody remember? So, you know, there is something called trauma of death, terminal restlessness. So whenever you have an accident, a traumatic experience in this life, you have a loss of memory, many cases. So the post-traumatic amnesia, it is called. Okay. So that happens even in this lifetime. The other thing is that people found out that during pregnancy, when the baby grows in the womb, there are some special hormones that cause erasure of memory. So even if there is any memory coming from your past life, that is erased. Now the natural question is then why? Why is that? Now the people who try to explain, their hypothesis is that it's nature's arrangement. Just like your chromosome mix and the progression of life is nature's arrangement, similarly this is also nature's arrangement, so that most of the time you forget. Otherwise, imagine if a soul goes through many lives, and if it remembers everything that happened in all the lives, then it will be impossible to live the current life. Probably an individual will become mad. It's a flashback of so many memories. It's abnormal. So that's nature's arrangement. And just like in nature's normal arrangement, not all human beings have 2 hands, 2 legs. Sometimes you have a child with say, blind eye. Similarly, there are also some accident happens. So it's not that everybody forgets. Only the accidental cases remember. That's why those are very few.
So I have a question.
Just like birth defects.
So how do these memories travel from birth to birth?
Okay. So the thing is that what is memory? From computer science point of view, if you want to, so it's a storage of information. So the information and storage of information are 2 different things. Right? Information is an abstract quantity. When you represent an information, then you try to encode it in terms of signals, in terms of bits. You want to store it in registers, in memories, but you can copy from one memory to another memory, right? So when you copy, when information transfer happens, okay, through something, through some media, so there is a notion of abstractness there. I mean, nobody knows what is information. We only know how to process information. So the idea here is that what they propose is that the information as an abstract quantity travels with the soul, and the information is stored in the brain in the next life. So it's a data transfer from the brain of the previous life to the brain of the next life.
So is
through
soul
space.
the media of this transformation? Information.
Soul is not the media. You can say soul and the information, they are transferred together. So 2 entities are transferred.
So in computer science, whatever is stored, the storage, that is only electronic signals which are being inputted somehow on technological process. But in a human body, whatever we take input, that is sound or light. What we see, that is a reflection of something which is actual light, and whatever we hear, that is a sound. So how these physical quantities, the light is a reflection of some photon particles, and
So how does human being remember?
How does this thing?
That is itself. Wait.
It's a storage of some information, but if these are these physical entities, how do these things get transferred?
So that is not known. So that is still under research. So even forget about soul and transfer of information from one life to next life. Even in one life, say currently, how a brain actually stores information and processes information at the bottom end, that is not known. There are many theories behind it. Some people say it's neurotransmitter. Some people say there is, when the electrical signal reaches the end of the dendrite, there is wave generated. There are a lot of waves, and there is interaction among the waves. Some people say, like Roger Penrose and another biologist, they build a model called quantum cellular automata. They say that, okay, the quantum cellular automata is going through different state changes, and those states actually remember information. So there are a lot of debate, and we do not know. So that's the thing. So Colin Watson said the sheer volume of evidence for survival after death is so immense that to ignore it is like standing at the foot of Mount Everest and insisting that you cannot see the mountain. So actually Abhijit gave me some reference, and from that I found out these results. This is a guy who is in the computer science and biophysics department, and this is called GDV, or gas discharge visualization. So basically when you put an object on a photographic plate and you connect the photographic plate to a high voltage source, then you see a peculiar diagrams coming up on the photographic plate. So that's called GDV, and they have studied the GDV diagrams of sequoia, of leaves, of human beings, and the strange thing is that the diagram changes according to, for example, for animate objects, the diagram changes according to the mood. So when the human being is happy or sad or diseased or say sleeping or awake, according to that, the GDV diagram also changes, and it captures different stages of consciousness, which cannot be explained because it's a normal photograph. So that's another aspect. And the last thing which I came across, October 8, 2014, I don't know whether some of you have seen this, otherwise you can go back and search in Google. Reported in Times of India. So it reports about a case studied by University of Southampton, joint project with Imperial College, University of London, University of Cambridge. It's called Life After, thank you, but I don't read it. 2060 patients from 15 hospitals in UK. And they found some cases where, say, the patient was unconscious and declared dead medically. So normally after the heart stops, the moment between heart stops and the brain dies, the brain death, which is the official and formal definition of death. So between that, normal time is 30 to 40 seconds typically. Sometimes it can go up to a minute, but that's very rare. What they found that here, people survived even 3 minutes or more after the heart work was stopped, and they came back to life. So that was surprising, and sometimes they described events which cannot be explained by other means. So they said that they came out of their body and they observed certain things in the room. For example, someone carrying an item or someone wearing a particular dress, and which they found to be true and which is unexplainable. That how a patient, even if the patient dreams, can see the reality that's happening outside, closing his or her eyes. Okay. So that was another thing. So if I summarize the evidence, one is people remembering past life, the other is deja vu. Sometimes we have feeling that we have met this person, we have been in this place before. Out of body experience that the last research talked about, near death experience. Deja vu is sometimes in your life you see a person and you try to, and there is a feeling in your mind that I have seen this person before. Okay? Or you go to a place, you feel that I have been here before, I know this place. I mean, there is a corner right there, I can take a right and see this. So the people who do research in reincarnation and who believe, they try to say that, try to explain that this is probably linked to your past life experience.
Like Shonapella.
Like Shonapella.
Sir, one question, because you always related to past life.
Not always, but one potential reason can be past life. For example, phobia in child. Is it always related to past life? Obviously no. হ্যাঁ সেটা হতে পারে। ফর এক্সাম্পল তুমি একটা ঘটনা দেখেছো সেটা ভুলে গেছো, পরে তোমার মনে পড়লো, সেটা হতে পারে।
Sir, next thing. Can't it be something of future, means like predestination?
That you cannot describe as a fact, no?
Reincarnation, you cannot explain that, but probably that you are talking about physics. If information can travel in the past. Okay. So that is a study of relativistic quantum mechanics. So we have to study, so there is something called causal diamond. So whenever you have past light cone and future light cone and they intersect, they make a diamond-like shape, and that actually denotes the space-time geometry through which information can travel, or from one point of space-time you can access information of another point of space-time. So that's a different thing. Maybe we can talk about it later.
Sir, আপনি বলছেন যে people remember past life.
Huh?
People remembering past life. That means যে প্রথমে কোন সোল ক্রিয়েট হয়েছিল তারপর তো সোলটা এক ডেতে বাই ডে ট্রান্সফার হচ্ছে এক বডি থেকে বডিতে না, যে ফার্স্ট সোল যে ক্রিয়েট হলো বাই
রিসার্চ করো। Okay, many. So anyway, we don't have to. We should not forget the purpose of the talk. The purpose of the talk is not to find out how the first soul was created, but to achieve happiness and success in life, both spiritually and materially.
But the Indian philosophy says that soul neither can be created.
I know, but let's come to that. Okay, and many psychiatric diseases. No honno te honno mane shoy. So whenever you look at different religions, so the philosophy of soul is not a copyright of one particular religion, I would say. It's a very general phenomena. As you have seen, the research was also done by people from different countries of different faith and religions. And if we study the religious text also, so-called Hinduism, even the Judaic book Yohar, Christianity, Gospel of Saint Matthew accounts about reincarnation in detail. And even in Quran, I have listed some verses that talks about the existence of ruh or soul, okay, and that whether it can be brought back to life, it can travel from life to life, so that entity. So this is very general phenomenon, okay. And the benefits of believing in soul, the first thing, that forgetting about those success, but whatever comes into the way of that success, we have identified that problems created by other living entities, right? So that can be at least resolved to some extent if you believe in that. So for example, if you believe in the theory of soul and reincarnation, then the war between nations become meaningless, because anybody can take birth anywhere across nations. No racial discrimination based on caste and color is also possible. And in fact, people who try to promote the caste system in the name of Hindu religion, they have not studied our Vedic texts. There nowhere it is written that this caste is based on blood or birth. It's based on profession actually. So a doctor's child or a doctor's son or daughter does not become a doctor, right? He or she has to give the joint entrance exam. So it's not obvious. Similarly, just because one takes birth in, say, Chatterjee, Banerjee family, becomes Brahmin. It's not like that. Okay? So it says, so our texts say that it's by action and by quality. That's clearly said everywhere. Similarly, no hatred, envy between human beings. No fighting in the name of religion. So that was also meaningless, because the soul is beyond religion. It can be in a Hindu body, it can be in a Muslim body, in one birth, in next birth. And similarly, so religious conversion is also meaningless. So that has nothing to do with soul. Object 5, this is the last object. Again, another controversial issue is God. So how can we talk about it in this limited time? Let's see. So we see physical laws in the universe. We see Newton's law, we see Einstein's law, and everything. And the presence of law makes us question that how did this law come about? Okay? Is there a lawmaker? For example, when you see traffic lights, all the cars following traffic signals, then that's not a random event. Definitely there is someone who put the law. So that kind of argument is there in this faith. Then some people say that there is a universal energy or supreme energy that controls everything. If you look into modern physics, they talk about theory of everything. So Einstein spent 30 years of his life trying to find out the theory of everything. So it basically tries to reconcile the physical force systems. You know, there are 4 kinds of forces. The force of gravitation, the force of electromagnetism, weak nuclear force and strong nuclear force, right? And three have been combined, but the fourth one, gravitation, is left out. And physicists believe that once they have a theory which can combine these forces together, they will have a master equation, which is the theory of everything, which can predict everything that happens in the universe. If such a thing exists, so that according to the physicist is God, so that equation. So you can either believe that equation to be God or the creator of that equation to be God. It becomes equivalent at that point of time. So even from physics point of view also, there is something which governs every other thing in the universe. So, and it's a matter of taste and it's a matter of philosophy whether you want to distinguish between that grand unified law that people are trying to achieve and the lawmaker. So it's a matter of taste. You can think they are equivalent, you can think lawmaker and law are different. Two models basically. You can explain both this. So let us look at what science says about God. So Isaac Newton, there is a famous story that one of his friend was atheist, and once he came to visit Newton, Newton had built a model of the solar system and put it in his table. Okay. So when the friend asked that, who presented you this, or how did you get it? So Newton said, it fell from the sky. So the friend did not believe. So then he said, you must be playing a joke. So Newton said, come on, you believe that this simple model cannot fall from sky. Someone must have created it, and you think that the actual thing just happened randomly. Nobody created it. So that was Newton's argument. Okay. Another interesting thing that I found out is by Blaise Pascal. You have studied Pascal's law, right? Everybody in physics. So he gave an argument from game theory. So you know, game theory, you always deal with strategies and try to find out what is the best strategy. So there is no question of good or bad, or say reality, or true or false. It's not a question of that, it's a question of strategy, that which strategy will follow. So it's like a payoff matrix of game theory. So on the row you have whether you believe God or you don't believe in God, two possibilities. In the column is the actual thing which we don't know. So either God exists or God does not exist. So two possibilities. And so what he argued that, okay, so if God exists and if you believe in the existence of God, then you have infinite gain because God is infinite and you will get a reward ultimately. When that's a different issue. If you disbelieve and God exists, then it's an infinite loss. On the other hand, the cross term, so for example, if God does not exist, if you whether you believe or not, it's finite loss and finite gain, because anyway your life goes on. So, and not many people, you know, protested against this +1 -1. That's more or less universally accepted. You can put any finite number instead of, so for example, you can put that if God does not exist, then disbelieving has no reward than believing. You can put that, but as long as you put any finite number.
So even gain বা loss বলতে gain বলতে কি gain বা loss বলতে?
Yes, nothing materialistic.
Nothing materialistic. Okay.
Sir, practice এটা explain করে দিন।
So the ijth entry tells you the reward that you get. Okay. You can think of material plus spiritual, ultimate reward, everything combined. Reward that you get if you are in the ith row, and if the reality is the jth column.
So how does Pascal actually decide that the the entry of the first row and first column should be an infinite gain?
No, if God really exists, then
No, so
of course.
if we presume that God really exists, and that's our belief, and if God exists, then how does it come that our gain should be infinite?
Why not?
Why? Because
Okay, God by definition is the supreme controller, right? I mean, he's controlling everything. And if you don't believe in the existence of God, that means you will not follow whatever God has said in the scriptures.
Okay.
Okay, and whatever the people who believe in God, they are trying to say in their philosophy. So you will not follow that. So that means you will not attain whatever they will attain. So in that sense, you are trying to argue whether God exists or not. But here the assumption is God exists in this column. And then assuming God exists, so that is the reality. And I am not believing in the reality, so I am not acting in the reality.
At least one point is very clear from your this table, that if you believe that God does not exist, loss is finite, not infinite.
Yes, of course. But what he said that if we want to find out the expected loss or gain, that is normally you do in game theory strategy, because we do not know the column. We do not know whether God exists or God does not exist, right? Okay. So, because we do not have any prior distribution, you have to assume it's half-half. The probability is half-half. So, now we have only the row option, the strategy, because we do not know the columns. It's not accessible to us. So what I have to do, I have to assume a probability distribution, half-half, and then take the expectation. If you take the expected amount of return of the strategy of believing in God versus the strategy of not believing in God, then you see that the belief always dominates disbelief. So in game theoretic term, it's called a dominating strategy. So that means believing you will have the expected return is more than not believing in God.
In fact, that gives some strength in your mind. No? That is the main reason.
That is the main reason. That's his argument, okay, not mine anyway.
No, but if you take it in the other way, in the case of not God but the ghost, then what will happen? Ghost exists out there.
I don't know, you might try that.
So if the column is God doesn't exist, means God doesn't exist, I am just saying according to this row and column theory.
Okay.
And if I disbelieve that fact, how do I get a finite gain? If God really doesn't exist and I disbelieve that fact, then how does I get a finite gain?
Oh, because you save time in following the instructions of God. So someone
actually he doesn't exist, but I am disbelieving that fact, means I am following something which doesn't exist.
No. It's not disbelieving in the column. It means disbelieving in the
God doesn't exist and I disbelieve that fact. It is true.
It's not disbelief of column fact. It's disbelief in God. It's belief in God, disbelief in God. And if God exists, God does not exist.
So this is intersecting now.
Yeah. So that means you are having a correct belief. That means your belief is correct. Here the belief is God does not exist. And God really does not exist. So your belief is correct. Therefore finite.
Sir.
Okay.
Sir, if a terrorist gives a priest, so what is the gain of priest and what is the loss of terrorist?
Pardon me?
If a terrorist kills a priest, so what is the gain of priest and what is the loss of terrorist?
You mean spiritually or materially?
From this matter. Terrorists doesn't believe in God. The priest believes in God, but the priest is getting killed. So what is the gain?
Probably the priest will die while smiling and the terrorist will be unhappy throughout his life. That's my conjecture. Anyway.
So
Anyway, it can be answered in more detail also, but I tried to.
Before going to this slide, so in your past slides you have mentioned that nothing is random actually. So if we assume that God really exists, so there should be someone who is actually a lawmaker. So in the context of lawmaker, so nothing is really random.
Yes.
So in this slide, so since we do not know, God exists or does not exist, and therefore we assume that this will exist with probability half and God does not exist with probability half. But since God exists, this is with probability half, then doesn't it contradict with the fact that nothing is random with the assumption that God exists?
No. In this model, he is not trying to find out whether there is any lawmaker or not. It's just in game theory point of view, you don't try to find out what is reality. You just try to find out what is your strategy. So that is the goal of game theory. Okay. So this is his argument why you should believe in the existence of God, independent of whether it exists or not. Okay?
But I think these two views are contradictory.
Why?
Since
in game theory you cannot prove or disprove. Why the view is contradictory?
So, when we are assuming that God exists, and in that case nothing is random, so we always say any event with probability 1, right? With the assumption that God exists. Now, in this view, God exists with probability half.
No. You
So
are going
we are
into,
believing that
well,
God
you are
exists,
going
but
in,
we are again imposing probability half instead of imposing probability 1.
But in this model, does it say that the whole thing is based on the assumption that God exists?
No,
Pascal did not say
but
that.
if we condition on the event that God exists,
Huh.
so that is probability 1.
No.
But
No,
since we,
not conditioned. You do not know whether God exists or not.
okay.
You do not know that as an observer. So you put equal probability.
Oh, okay. From an observer point of view. Okay.
Yeah, from an observer.
Fine.
From a player. So you are the player. Now you have two strategies. Either to believe in God or not to believe in God. And you don't have any access to the information whether God exists or not. Right?
Okay.
Anyway, we are spending too much time on one side. Isn't it?
Sir, how do we define God? Who is God?
Equation of the theory of everything. God means the lawmaker behind all the laws in the universe. Okay?
So if we somehow create that equation, to combine that.
We don't create the equation, we find the equation.
If we find the equation,
we create no equation.
We do not actually create anything. We are actually discovering.
We find.
Yes. So if we find that master equation, then can we replace the term called God with that master equation?
You can probably, but there is one thing. Even the physicists debate about it, whether that master equation can explain free will. Free will. So for example, the choice of doing something and not doing something, consciousness, whether that can be governed by that master equation, whether the master equation will act only on matter or both on matter and consciousness, that's a matter of debate. Okay?
But that argument can be tested after the master equation is found out.
So again, right now we have to take a practical point of view. I am here not to tell you about philosophy and to debate about this metaphysics. That will not help you achieve anything, neither materially nor spiritually. Okay. So let's focus on our subject. So this is just statement of some famous people. Okay. Werner Heisenberg, Nobel Prize in Physics. There is a higher power not influenced by our wishes, which finally decides and judges. Paul Dirac, Nobel Prize in Physics. God is a mathematician of very high order and he used very advanced mathematics in constructing the universe. And then there are something called intelligent design, which actually the biologists after this, the information encoded in the DNA, after this Human Genome Project was done. So when you look at it, it is such a high order, and to try to calculate the probability that this thing happened randomly, that's almost vanishingly small. So from that statistical argument, many biologists now believe in something which is called intelligent design theory. So that means they do not say anything about God, but they say that everything that is in nature, it's very intelligently designed, and that's it. So who designed it? So existence of intelligent design implies an intelligent designer, but they don't want to go into that kind of argument.
Stephen Hawking has a good book, Grand Design.
Grand Design, yeah. Okay. So it's not a matter of proof or disproof, as I said. So body, mind, intelligence is fine. Soul, whether it exists or not, that's not a matter of proof or disproof. That's a model. So you can view, okay, I will have a soulful model or a soulless model. Now the question is, we are trying to address the path to success and happiness. Let's see. So I will say, let's assume for the time being that there is soul. So just take it as a model, and if the model benefits you, then you will accept the model, whatever be the reality. Reality we don't care about. Right? So we talked about objects. Now there is relationship between objects.
But without reality, can he be happy? Without reality.
So basically when you become happy, that will justify the reality. So that's my thing. So you can take an axiomatic approach, that this is my axiom, this is my hypothesis, let me do the experiment. If I get the result, I believe. If I don't get the result, I throw it out. My approach is this. You don't have to believe anything. You just take it as a hypothesis, do the experiment, reject or accept. That's my point. Okay?
Sometimes it rejects, sometimes you have to accept.
So, object relation. So, normally the relationship, so it's an entity relationship diagram you can think of. So, normally the soul is compared to be the passenger in a chariot here, and the intelligence is compared to the chariot driver. The mind is compared to the rope, and the senses are compared to the horses. So, the fact is, I mean, what is the ideal condition? Ideal condition is the passenger will command the driver to take to a place, and the horses will be commanded according to that. If the other way around happens, if the horses go wherever they want